President Biden consistently has stated that he never discussed businesses with Hunter Biden's associates. That is a lie. Let me repeat that even for the colleagues across the aisle. It is a lie. Throughout our extensive investigation and from the lips of credible witnesses, it is abundantly clear that the Biden family business is Joe Biden. Let me emphasize, there is no Biden family business except for Joe Biden's 40-plus year career in Washington, D.C. That has been the family business. As a member of the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, we have followed the paper trail. We've conducted our investigation.
If you believe America deserves honest leadership and real accountability, you're going to want to hear every second of this. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because we're covering the stories the mainstream media doesn't want to spend much time discussing. Today we're reacting to Byron Donalds' fiery floor speech where he laid out why he believes President Joe Biden should face an impeachment inquiry. Whether you agree with him or not, these are serious allegations that deserve public attention.
For the big guy, 10% of a relevant joint venture was held for the big guy. At this point in the committee's investigation, we've established that Joe Biden is the big guy. Through the web of transactions that purposefully tried to hide the big guy's involvement, let me stress again that Joe Biden is the Biden family business. Let me illustrate an example of the confusing web of transactions. A Chinese company sent $5 million to a joint venture between Hunter and an associate. That same day, the joint venture sent $400,000 to an entity that Hunter Biden controls alone. Less than a week later, Hunter Biden wired $150,000.
Representative Byron Donalds delivered a passionate speech on the House floor outlining why he believes the investigation into President Joe Biden should continue. In this video, we break down Donald's key arguments, the financial transactions he highlighted, the ongoing congressional investigation, and what it could mean going forward. This video provides commentary and analysis on current political events and discusses allegations and claims made during congressional proceedings, which remain subject to investigation and public debate. If you enjoy political news, congressional hearings, and conservative commentary, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video.
It's to my good friend from Florida, Mr. Byron Donalds. Thank you.
I want to thank the gentleman from Utah, our new vice chairman, and I want to congratulate him as well. Mr. Speaker, President Biden consistently has stated that he never discussed businesses with Hunter Biden's associates. That is a lie. Let me repeat that even for the colleagues across the aisle. It is a lie. Throughout our extensive investigation and from the lips of credible witnesses, it is abundantly clear that the Biden family business is Joe Biden. Let me emphasize, there is no Biden family business except for Joe Biden's 40-plus year career in Washington, D.C. That has been the family business. As a member of the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, we have followed the paper trail. We've conducted our investigation by the book. We have discovered damning evidence, and we continue to do so every day. Our investigation has led to some alarming and eye-opening findings, which point to the president's knowledge and involvement in illegal business transactions. For example, in 2018, James Biden, the president's brother, received $600,000 in a loan from AmeriCorps, a financially distressed, failing rural hospital operator. Bankruptcy court documents suggested that James Biden received these loans based upon representations that his last name, Biden, could open doors in the Middle East based on his political connections. Now, we all know James Biden doesn't have political connections. Joe Biden, his brother, has political connections. Specifically, AmeriCorps wired a $200,000 loan into the account of James and Sarah Biden. Here's what makes the evidence damning. On the same day, James Biden wrote a $200,000 check from the same account addressed to his brother, Joe Biden. And for the American people, the brother of James Biden is the president of the United States. Next example is an email obtained by the committee from a Hunter Biden associate. mentioning that 10% of the relevant joint venture that held by Hunter for the big guy, 10% of a relevant joint venture was held for the big guy. At this point in the committee's investigation, we've established that Joe Biden is the big guy. Through the web of transactions that purposefully tried to hide the big guy's involvement, let me stress again that Joe Biden is the Biden family business. Let me illustrate an example of the confusing web of transactions. A Chinese company sent $5 million to a joint venture between Hunter and an associate. That same day, the joint venture sent $400,000 to an entity that Hunter Biden controls alone. Less than a week later, Hunter Biden wired $150,000 from this entity to a company owned by James Biden and Sarah Biden, James Biden, the president's brother. Sarah Biden later withdrew $50,000 from the same company. Less than a week later, Sarah wrote a personal check to Joe Biden, aka the big guy, aka the president of the United States, for $40,000. 10% of the $400,000 that was mentioned in the email by the associate to Hunter Biden. Another example is when a confidential human source overheard a Burisma executive claiming to have bribed then Vice President Joe Biden for $5 million. As I stated earlier, Joe Biden consistently says that he never discussed businesses with Hunter Biden's associate. This was a blatant lie by the commander-in-chief, and the American people deserve to know the truth. Joe Biden never thought that the Oversight Committee would get this far in its investigation. And additional damning evidence will soon be revealed to the American people. This leads me to my next point. The Foreign Agents Registration Act, or commonly known as FARA. To be clear, Hunter Biden has never, and I repeat, never registered as a foreign agent, despite his lucrative work being done on behalf of foreign interests and his many travels on Air Force Two. And that wasn't just because he missed his dad. Specifically, Hunter has been documented business transactions with a Chinese government-based energy company called CEFC. Interestingly enough, the same company, CEFC, is the same one that is affiliated with the company that sent $5 million to Hunter Biden. How is this not the definition of being and acting as a foreign agent? Paul Manafort was convicted for far less. The time is now to open up an impeachment investigation pertaining to the president's direct link to blatant corruption, pay-for-play tactics, and acting as a co-conspirator to the crimes committed by his family on behalf of Joe Biden himself. The committee will continue to do our due diligence.
Representative Byron Donalds took to the House floor with one clear message. He believes the evidence gathered by the House Oversight Committee points toward a much bigger story than Americans have been told. According to Donalds, President Biden repeatedly claimed he never discussed business with Hunter Biden's associates. Donalds flatly rejected that claim, arguing that testimony and financial records collected by congressional investigators tell a different story. One of the biggest points Donalds focused on was the series of financial transactions involving members of the Biden family. He argued that these weren't isolated events, but part of a much larger pattern investigators have been examining for months. Donalds highlighted the loan received by James Biden from AmeriCorps and pointed to the fact that James later wrote a $200,000 check to Joe Biden. Donalds presented that timing as significant and questioned why those transactions occurred the way they did. He also revisited the now famous email referring to 10% for the big guy. Donalds stated that investigators believe the big guy refers to Joe Biden. Supporters of the investigation argue this email raises important questions about the president's role, while critics dispute that interpretation. Donalds made it clear he believes the committee has gathered enough evidence to continue digging deeper. Another major focus of his speech was the complicated flow of money involving companies connected to Hunter Biden, James Biden, and Sarah Biden. Donalds argued that the movement of funds through multiple entities appeared designed to make the financial trail difficult to follow. He also referenced allegations involving a confidential human source who claimed a Burisma executive discussed bribing then Vice President Joe Biden. Those allegations have been widely debated, and Donalds argued they should receive thorough investigation rather than being dismissed outright. Donalds then shifted to Hunter Biden's overseas business dealings, particularly his connections with the Chinese energy company CFC. He questioned why Hunter Biden never registered under the Foreign Agents Registration Act despite conducting business tied to foreign interests. As a conservative, I think one principle should apply equally to everyone. If Republicans are investigated when credible questions arise, then Democrats should be investigated under the exact same standard. Accountability cannot depend on political party. Americans deserve transparency regardless of who occupies the White House. What stood out most during Donald's speech wasn't simply the accusations themselves. It was his argument that Congress has a constitutional responsibility to investigate potential corruption wherever it may lead. Oversight exists for a reason, and if lawmakers believe there are unanswered questions involving financial transactions and public officials, those questions deserve a fair examination. At the same time, it's important to remember that allegations made during congressional proceedings are not, by themselves, proof of criminal wrongdoing. Investigations are meant to gather evidence, evaluate competing claims, and determine what conclusions are supported by the facts. Donalds ended by arguing that an impeachment inquiry would provide Congress with additional investigative tools to obtain documents and testimony. Whether that ultimately changes public opinion remains to be seen, but his speech clearly signals that congressional Republicans intend to keep pursuing the matter. This debate is about more than one politician. It's about whether Americans can trust that government officials are held to the same standards as everyone else. Regardless of where the investigation ultimately leads, transparency and accountability are essential principles in a constitutional republic. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe Congress should continue investigating these allegations, or do you think the evidence presented so far falls short? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest coverage.